Hello, hi, Odd-Eye Guy. And for as much as I talk about card games and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Cardfight Vanguard, there is another thing I do like to do, believe it or not, and that is just straight up watch anime. And I have a ton of anime that I've watched, but not all anime are created equal. And there's some anime that are super underrated in my opinion, that I feel as if people should watch and talk about. Not to say that it's bad, but I feel as if people nowadays kind of only focus on the popular shows that come out and don't really look at the huge backlog that anime has. So I just decided to give 5 shows, have people watch them. If you don't think they're as underrated as I seem to think they are, I mean, that's good on you. But either way, I just wanted to give recommendations that I think people would enjoy and that people should watch so they talk about more. So my first show that I would say is pretty underrated is Undead Unluck. I was watching it when it was airing and it was so good, but not a lot of people I seen were talking about it, and that kind of made me sad because it had a super great premise right off the start with one of the main girls wanting to kill herself and then getting saved by pretty much a guy that can't die, can regenerate limbs. And then the story just goes super out of whack off of that. It has great and interesting characters besides just the 2 main ones, which is Andy and Fuko. And it also has some of the best world building I've seen in a while. Like pretty much everything that's used in the story is set up for the world and also is set up for plot twists to happen. Undead Unluck has so many plot twists that it's crazy. Like just mentioning small parts of the story can actually be a plot twist. And I think that's kind of crazy to think. So if you like a story that has good action, good characters, and really great world building, while also having a sad story, but people that rise up to challenge how the world is, then yeah, recommend Undead Unluck. And it also has a good female lead. My second recommendation is something that is not really more so underrated in Japan, but kind of underrated over here in the West, and that is Magi and also the Adventures of Sinbad. Now, they're both set in the same universe. The Adventures of Sinbad is just more so like a prequel to Magi, which follows one of the characters in Magi, Sinbad, and his journey before he created his own nation and everything. But either way, they're both really good stories, and they're just like vast adventure, kind of like One Piece in a sense. They're just vast adventures that the characters go on. And it's a really interesting setting. It kind of seems more like the Middle East. There's a lot of sand, but then there's also islands and there's vast cities and there's also magic. And so a lot of characters utilize magic, while also there's a thing inside the Magi universe, which are towers. And once you conquer the towers, you can get these gods, or they're called metal vessels, and you can get basically gods to help and work for you. They get explained later on, but just the base premise of Magi and the Adventures of Sinbad are both really interesting, and you just get lost in a big open world to see how the characters interact. You also get some great fights, a pretty big world. So me personally, I'd recommend to just watch the Adventures of Sinbad and then watch Magi, since the Adventures of Sinbad is a prequel to Magi following Sinbad, and just watching his development from how he starts at the beginning to how he ends up in the anime is really cool. I think you should give Magi a try if you like big open worlds. If you like One Piece, you'd probably like Magi. And if you like a really interesting magic system that's super well explained and in-depth, has so many big aspects to it, from regular elemental magic to people combining magic with magic equations, and then also gods that you can use their magic from, I would recommend Magi and / The Adventures of Sinbad. My third recommendation will be World Trigger. Now, I think World Trigger is on Netflix, so somebody might have seen it or might have got scared away from it because of how long it is. But World Trigger is super, super good. Now, it's set in a world where there's these basically aliens called neighbors, and sometimes they come into Earth, and so there's a defense agency for Earth, and they help protect against neighbors by using their technology against them. I mean, that's already set up for an interesting story, but how one of the main characters, there's technically for Mikano. Watching how he leads his own team and how they have their own goals is super duper interesting. I think one of the standout features of World Trigger is its battle system. In World Trigger, everyone has Trion, you know, basically the energy source for the system, similar to your chakra, cursed energy, all that. But in World Trigger, they instead use Trion to power their triggers. So triggers are just weapons that they use. They can look like swords, they're guns, stuff like that. And the in-depth explanations for all the weapons is super concise. They have explanations for pretty much every trigger used in the show, and also they fight with strategy and teams. It's not just Dragon Ball where it's like if you have a stronger power level, you just overpower the other person. In World Trigger, everyone fights in teams, and it's more strategy based and trying to outwit other people. If you like a really interesting power system with a really cool setting and people fighting aliens, then yeah, I'd very much recommend World Trigger. And I don't even think I did it justice by talking about it. I think it'd just be better to watch it and experience World Trigger for itself. So that's one of the ones I'd highly recommend. Even if it's pretty long, it's well worth it to watch all of it. The fourth show that I would recommend is called Kemono Jihan. Now, Kemono Jihan starts with a boy that's in a village and everybody hates him, but then it turns out, this is a slight spoiler, but it turns out like he's basically a supernatural creature called a kimono, and he eventually gets subjugated by this detective. Then the detective takes him into his agency. There's two other kimono children, a guy that he's basically descended from a spider, and so he can shoot webs out like Spider-Man a little bit. And then there's a guy, even though he looks like a girl, he is a guy, and he can control ice. It's based off of yokai, so if you're already familiar with yokai, then you'd know. But it has a really interesting plot setting with it being mostly children and not even teenagers. They're basically like maybe middle school or a little bit younger aged. So that already creates pretty interesting dynamic between the characters. And the powers are also really cool because it's all supernatural based. I won't deny that it's really not as interesting as some of the other power systems I mentioned before, but it's pretty nice and pretty interesting, and it's kind of cool to see yokai inspirations if you already like yokai and supernatural creatures like I do. I mean, you could probably tell that given that I made a yokai watch video. Either way, I think Kemono Jihan is a really underrated watch, and it's only 12 episodes, so you can give it a shot more easily than you could for World Trigger or Magi in the Avengers of Sinbad. If you like supernatural creatures, yokai, and characters that are a little bit more younger, because I know people kind of get tired of high school age characters in anime, then yeah, I would highly recommend Kemono Jihan. Now my final recommendation is something I kind of had to make the excuse of this video for to talk about. Go-Go Loser Ranger, also called Sentai Dashihaku in the Japanese. Please watch it. I really need people to watch. I love Go-Go Loser Ranger as a fan of Power Rangers, and as someone who's watched a little Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. Bro, Go-Go Loser Ranger pretty much checks off every box that you could really want. It has interesting plot with a really corrupt and dark world, but it's kind of dressed over with the Rangers that pretend to be the good guys, but it turns out that they're really not as good, and they enslaved basically the minions, because you know how in every Power Ranger show they summon little minions. In this one, they basically enslave the minions to act out every Sunday as bad guys, and then the Rangers come in and defeat them as a kind of a nod to how Super Sentai airs on Sundays in Japan. The plot just develops all the way through there. The main character, D, he escapes and then ends up trying to take down the Rangers. But as the story progresses, we learn there's so much more about the world than just the Rangers and the Sunday showdowns. I just love Go-Go Loser Ranger and how it is. Now season 2, I will admit, I've heard is not as good as how it is in the manga. But either way, the first season does everything perfectly. Even if season 2 might not be as goodly portrayed, I would still recommend to please watch Go-Go Loser Ranger and even just read the manga. I take anything at this point. I just really want people to watch Go-Go Loser Ranger. I think it's a great watch. If you like Power Rangers or Super Sentai, or even a bit of Kamen Rider, since they do take some elements from that, then I would highly recommend it. It pretty much is a darker show about it, but it's not darker like The Boys, for example. It's not just overly edgy for the sake of being edgy. It meaningfully cares about Super Sentai, but it just portrays some of the characters in a more darker light, which is something I personally appreciate, because I don't just like dark shows that want to take something that people like superheroes, and then show them that if people really had superpowers, they'd just all be evil. I don't think that's how people would turn out if they had superpowers. But slight rant aside, and me not liking The Boys, yeah, I would very much recommend Go-Go Loser Ranger and every other anime that I've shown here now. If you liked the video, subscribe for other things that I do. Thanks, and goodbye.